Joan Baez was born on January 9, 1941 in Staten Island, New York to Albert Baez, a physicist, and Joan Bridge Baez, an artist and activist. Her father was born in Puebla, Mexico, while her mother was born in Scotland to an English mother and a German Jewish father. Joan's birth name was Joan Chandos Baez after her maternal grandmother Joanna Chandos. Joan grew up in Palo Alto, California, where her father taught at Stanford University. Joan's mother was a pacifist and humanitarian who influenced Joan's activism from an early age. Joan showed an interest in art, music, and human rights from a young age. She began playing the ukulele at 10 and the guitar at 13 after being inspired by folk singers like Pete Seeger, Woody Guthrie, and Bob Gibson. At 17, Joan dropped out of Palo Alto High School to pursue a music career. In 1958, at age 17, Joan performed publicly for the first time at the Newport Folk Festival. This led to her getting a recording contract and releasing her debut self-titled album Joan Baez in 1960. Joan's unique contralto voice and earnest renditions of folk and protest songs immediately attracted an audience. She soon became known as the Queen of Folk. Joan actively participated in the civil rights movement. She marched with Martin Luther King Jr. during the March on Washington in 1963 and performed at fundraisers for the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. Her early songs often related to peace, social justice, civil rights, and the counterculture movement of the 1960s. Some of Joan's most well-known 1960s songs include We Shall Overcome, There But for Fortune, It's All Over Now, Baby Blue, and Forever Young. Joan's personal life during this time was turbulent. She dated singer Eric Anderson, married David Harris in 1968, and struggled with drug addiction. However, her music career continued to thrive. In the 1970s, Joan focused her activism against the Vietnam War. She performed at anti-war protests and benefits. Her 1968 album Blessed Are was an anti-war protest album. As a result of her activism, Joan was subpoenaed by the FBI in 1971 to testify about anti-war organizers but refused. She spent 5 days in jail for contempt of court. Joan co-founded Amnesty International in 1971 with Peter Benenson. Amnesty International won the Nobel Peace Prize in 1977 for their human rights work. Joan continued recording and touring throughout the 1970s and 1980s, focusing on causes related to the environment, indigenous rights, and Tibetan freedom. Joan published her autobiography and A Voice to Sing With in 1987. Throughout her 60-year career, she has released over 30 albums. Joan's contralto voice and lyrics have inspired generations of folk singers and activists. Her music remains a powerful platform for political and social commentary. Joan was born into activism. Her pacifist mother and interests in human rights shaped Joan's worldview from an early age. Her musical journey began with the ukulele at age 10 and guitar at 13 after being inspired by folk singers of the time. Dropping out of high school at 17 to pursue music led to Joan's debut at the Newport Folk Festival and recording contract at age 17. Joan's activism and the civil rights movement were deeply intertwined. She used her music and platform to support the SNCC and march with Martin Luther King Jr. Her early songs spoke of peace, justice, and human rights, mirroring the counterculture movement of the 1960s. Joan's personal life during this time was tumultuous, but her passion for music and activism remained steadfast. Joan's focus shifted to protesting the Vietnam War in the 1970s. She performed at anti-war benefits and released a concept protest album. Joan's activism led to her arrest and jail time for refusing to testify about anti-war organizers before the FBI. She co-founded Amnesty International in 1971, which won a Nobel Peace Prize. Throughout her decades-long career, Joan has remained dedicated to using her voice and music to highlight social issues and inspire change. She has supported causes related to the environment, indigenous rights, and Tibetan freedom. Joan's contralto voice and eloquent storytelling have remained a constant through her musical and personal journey, allowing her to stay relevant for over 60 years. Joan Baez has spent over 60 years using her talents as an artist to uplift causes of peace, social justice, and human rights. Her distinctive contralto voice, eloquent storytelling, and activism have embodied the folk music spirit and been a voice for the voiceless. In the 1980s and 1990s, Joan focused her activism on a wider range of issues. She championed causes related to prisoners' rights, world hunger, gay rights, environmentalism, and indigenous rights. Joan performed benefit concerts to help fight poverty, disease, and homelessness. She also collaborated with and mentored a new generation of folk musicians like Mary Chapin Carpenter, Sinead O'Connor and Emmylou Harris. In 1998, Joan released the album Gone from Danger featuring these artists. Joan also co-founded the Prison Arm, a non-profit organization that seeks to improve prisoner rights and bring dignified rehabilitation programs to prisons. Her life during this time was marked by loss with the deaths of her father, ex-husband David Harris and significant members of her inner circle. However, Joan remained committed to speaking truth through her music. In the 2000s, Joan expanded her activism to include Tibetan freedom and global issues of war and violence. She performed on world tours and at benefit concerts to raise funds and awareness for humanitarian causes. Joan continued to use her celebrity platform to highlight systemic issues of oppression, injustice and violence. In 2009, Joan played herself in the popular HBO series True Blood. In 2013, she released the album Songs for a Changing World along with an accompanying documentary film. The album involves collaborations with artists like Jackson Browne, Indigo Girls, and Dar Williams. In 2018, Joan released the album Whistle Down the Wind, which featured covers of contemporary classics. Despite her advancing age, Joan continues to tour and perform around the world. She seeks to spread messages of love, hope and resistance wherever she goes. Her lyrics continue to highlight themes of justice, seeking truth and empowering the marginalized and oppressed. Joan has said that using her voice as an instrument for social change has been the most fulfilling aspect of her journey as a musician. Joan epitomizes the human spirit that refuses to accept injustice and recognizes our shared humanity. Her stories and songs carry wisdom born from a life dedicated to truth, love and service. Joan's contralto voice continues to convey deep emotions of empathy, sorrow and hope. Her music bridges generations and inspires listeners to build a more just and peaceful world. As Joan has said herself, music can't change the world, but it can carry a message, and an artist's job is to speak for change, not dictate change. Although Joan's journey has been marked by heartbreak, disappointments and loss, her spirit and optimism remain. Her voice reminds us of the power we all possess as individuals to make a positive difference in the world and stand up for what we believe in. Joan Baez truly is an inspiration, forging ahead with grace, wisdom and courage. Here are some of Joan Baez's most popular songs. We Shall Overcome. This was one of Joan's signature protest songs during the civil rights movement. It became an anthem for the activists marching for equality and justice. Diamonds and Rust. This 1975 song became a top 20 hit for Joan. It tells the story of her complicated relationship with Bob Dylan through vivid imagery and emotion. The Night They Drove Old Dixie Down. Joan's cover of this song about the Civil War became very popular. The song was originally written and performed by the band. There But for Fortune. This melancholy folk ballad, written by Phil Ochs, appeared on Joan's debut album in 1960. It is a reflection on life's uncertainties and fragility. Gracias a la Vida, an emotionally rich Spanish song written by Chilean songwriter Violeta Parra. Joan's version became an anthem of hope and gratitude. The Times, They Are A-Changing. Joan covered Bob Dylan's famous protest song from his 1964 album of the same name. Her version injects new passion and urgency into Dylan's lyrics. Babe, I'm Gonna Leave You, a folk standard popularized by Joan. The song's melancholy lyrics and Joan's haunting vocals make it a classic. A Song for Martin, a tribute to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. written by folk singer Lincoln Barrett. Joan's rendition showcases her raw talent for emotional interpretation.